On an ordinary night, terror invaded Barron. A destroyed family, a young woman taken without leaving a trace. For almost 3 months, just silence. The world wondered, was she still alive? Or was it already too late? Sophia Reed was just 13 years old and led a quiet life with her parents, Daniel and Laura Reed, in Barron, Wisconsin. The small town was the typical place where everyone knew everyone and the doors were rarely locked. On that cold October night, everything seemed to go on normally. Sophia had dinner with her parents, watched TV, and went up to her room, ready for another night's rest. But without them knowing, danger was already lurking. Shortly after midnight, the silence was brutally broken. An unknown man broke into the house, forcing entry violently and without giving the family a chance to react. Laura and Daniel's desperate screams echoed through the house as they tried, unsuccessfully, to protect their daughter. Sophia, trembling, watched hidden in her room as the horror unfolded before her eyes. In a matter of minutes, everything fell apart. The invader, cold and determined, eliminated any obstacle and headed straight for the girl. Without saying a word, he dragged her out of the room and away from the only place she called home. In shock, Sophia couldn't understand what was happening. Everything seemed like a terrible nightmare from which she couldn't wake up. Outside, the dawn was silent and freezing. Sophia was taken to a car parked on the deserted street. The man, who she would later learn was called Victor Lane, remained silent throughout the journey. Inside the vehicle, Sophia's tears fell as she tried to understand the reason for all this. Her heart was beating wildly and fear consumed her. The car sped along empty roads, leaving Barron behind. She knew something terrible was about to happen, but she had no idea what awaited her. As the journey continued, the city disappeared in the rearview mirror and gave way to roads, surrounded by dark forests. Sophia huddled in the back seat trying to memorize any detail that might be important. She knew that if she had any chance of escaping, she would need to be strong and smart. As the tears dried on her face, a seed of courage began to sprout within her. Sophia didn't know where she was going or what the future held, but she already understood that that night would mark the beginning of a battle for her life. The car drove on for miles, crossing deserted roads and leaving behind the familiar lights of Barron, Wisconsin. Sophia Reed remained motionless in the back seat, wrapped in paralyzing fear. Victor Lane, the man who kidnapped her, said nothing. He just drove, eyes fixed on the road, as if it were all part of a carefully planned plan. The silence inside the vehicle was as oppressive as the darkness outside. The young woman tried to grasp every detail. The sound of the engine, the smell of the car's interior, the signs that passed too quickly to be read. Something inside her told her that this information could save her life one day. Hours passed until they finally stopped. Sophia was taken out of the car and taken to a small cabin hidden in the middle of a dense forest. The location was cold, damp, and seemed to have been chosen precisely because it was far from any sign of civilization. With no neighbors or easy escape routes, this would be their new world, a world of forced silence and constant fear. Victor established the rules in the first few minutes. No screaming, no attempts to escape, and, above all, no hope. With each word spoken coldly, Sophia felt the prison close around her. The first days were the hardest. Victor left for long periods, but when he was present, the atmosphere became heavy. He monitored Sophia's every move, restricted her actions, and treated the girl as if she were just part of a sick game. She spent most of her time in a small room with covered windows, where she could not see daylight. Hunger, fear, and loneliness became his companions. However, even surrounded by so much darkness, Sophia decided that she would not let despair win. In silence, she began to mentally plot ways to survive. Far away in Barron, The search for Sophia never ceased. Family, friends, and neighbors joined together in campaigns to find her. Posters with his face were spread throughout the city, and investigations became a priority for the local police. While the world outside cried out for answers, Sophia fought her own battle. Every day was an endurance test. She learned to watch Victor carefully, to predict his movements, and to adapt. Despite being trapped, she kept her mind active, knowing that the opportunity to escape could arise when she least expected it. In Barron, Wisconsin, the days dragged on with an unbearable weight. The community, accustomed to the calm of daily routines, found itself plunged into an atmosphere of fear and sadness. Posters with Sophia Reed's face were plastered on every lamp, post, store, and school. Search parties were formed all the time. Volunteers walked along trails, forests, and rural roads, hoping to find any clues. Nobody wanted to accept the worst. For everyone, Sophia was still alive, somewhere, waiting to be rescued. Local authorities, along with state agents, expanded efforts, tracking calls, and investigating any information that emerged. With each passing day, the mystery grew deeper. How could a young woman disappear so quickly and without a trace? The national media began covering the case, transforming Sophia into a symbol of hope and struggle. Experts gave interviews, discussing possible scenarios and trying to understand what had happened that terrible night. For the Reed family, however, everything seemed unreal. Laura and Daniel were no longer there to fight for their daughter. Close friends and relatives tried to keep alive the hope that was challenged every day by the silence that came from the other side of the investigations. Meanwhile, in captivity, Sophia was unaware of the size of the mobilization. To her, the world seemed to have forgotten her existence. Trapped between cold walls and under the watchful eye of Victor Lane, the days and nights blended together. She didn't see the sun, she didn't hear voices other than his, and the feeling of abandonment was overwhelming. Even so, there was something inside her that wouldn't go away. Sophia refused to let fear take control. She talked to her own thoughts, stayed, alert, and promised herself that the story wouldn't end there yet. Outside, every little clue rekindled hope. A suspicious call, a security camera that showed an unknown car, any detail was a reason to redouble efforts. Sophia Reed's name echoed in every corner of Barron. People who didn't even know her prayed and sympathized with the family's pain. With each week without answers, however, the fear that the worst had already happened gained strength. But what no one knew was that, even locked, away and without contact with the world, Sophia was silently preparing her own exit. Her story was still far from over. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. For Sophia Reed, time seemed like an invisible enemy. Trapped in that isolated cabin, she learned to observe every detail of Victor Lane's behavior. He followed a strict routine. He left during the day and always returned at the same times. Although the fear was constant, Sophia began to understand that knowing the kidnappers, every move could be the key to survival. She silently counted his steps, memorized the noises in the house, and analyzed every small flaw in the security imposed. Little by little, without Victor noticing, she mentally drew up her escape plan. Sophia knew she couldn't act on impulse. Any mistake would ruin everything. Still, his determination grew every day. In one of the rare moments when Victor was careless, she noticed that the door was not completely locked. That sparked immediate hope. She decided that if a new chance arose, she would not hesitate. Over the next few days, she continued to prepare. She hid small objects that could be useful and remained calm even when fear threatened to overwhelm her. To escape, you would need to be patient and intelligent. The long-awaited opportunity finally arrived on a rainy afternoon. Victor Lane hurried away and left the door with the lock poorly fitted. Sophia's heart skipped a beat. She knew this was the chance she had been waiting for almost 3 months. Without making a sound, he slowly pushed the door open and walked out into the forest. The feeling of being outside the cabin was indescribable. The cold, damp air hit her face, but she had no time to hesitate. Even barefoot and weakened, she ran without looking back, guided only by her survival instinct. The escape was not easy. The forest seemed like an endless maze. Sophia tripped, hurt herself, and the fear of being caught again consumed her. Still, she didn't stop. After hours of wandering, he found a deserted road. Fate smiled on her when she saw a woman walking her dog. Without the strength to explain everything, Sophia just begged for help. The woman, realizing the seriousness of the situation, took her to the nearest place with a telephone signal. It was there, in that call to the police, that the world heard Sophia Reed's voice again. She was alive, and her incredible journey of resistance had finally found freedom. The news that Sophia Reed had been found alive spread quickly through Barron, Wisconsin, and across the country. In just a few hours, what was once just hope turned into an exciting reality. The young woman was immediately taken to a safe location, where she received medical care and psychological support. Even though she was tired and shaken, she was extremely courageous in reporting every possible detail about Victor Lane. Each piece of information shared became essential for the operation that was about to take place. The authorities, now armed with accurate data, acted quickly and strategically. While Sophia was protected and cared for, the police organized the operation to capture Victor. He was unaware that his victim had escaped and that his steps were about to be closely watched. Using information provided by Sophia, authorities were able to locate the isolated cabin in the woods. Without wasting time, agents surrounded the place and waited for the right moment to act. When Victor returned to the cabin, he was surprised by the massive presence of police officers. With no chance to react, he was arrested without offering resistance. The impact of Victor Lane's arrest was immediate. In Barron, tears of relief mixed with the feeling of justice finally achieved. Friends, family, and even strangers gathered to celebrate the end of the terror that had hung over the city since Sophia's disappearance. The case, which was already gaining prominence in the national press, now became a symbol of resistance and victory against fear. Victor was taken to the police station where he would be formally accused of the crimes committed. With each revelation of what Sophia was going through, the community's anger only increased. In the trial that followed, Victor Lane's fate was decided. With solid evidence and Sophia's emotional testimony, there was no disputing her guilt. He was convicted and received the maximum sentence allowed by law. For Sophia and everyone who supported her, seeing her kidnapper behind bars was an important step in ending that dark chapter. Even with Victor's arrest, the marks of what happened would remain. But for the young woman and for Barron, the most important thing was that the nightmare was over and justice had prevailed. After the end of the trial and the conviction of Victor Lane, Sophia Reed's life took a new direction. Although physically free, she bore deep emotional scars. Returning to Barron, Wisconsin was a mix of emotions. The streets that once represented tranquility now brought memories of what had been lost. Still, the community came together to support her. Neighbors, colleagues, and even strangers showed solidarity. The school organized discreet tributes, and the city respected the space Sophia needed. Slowly, she began to rebuild what terror tried to destroy. The healing process was not easy. Therapies became part of the routine, and sleepless nights were still part of the new reality. Sophia needed to relearn how to trust people and the world around her. Still, in the midst of so many difficulties, she demonstrated impressive strength. He participated in meetings with other victims of violent crimes and found comfort in sharing his experience. The support of professionals, friends, and family was crucial. She knew that, although she would never forget what she experienced, she had the power to decide how that story would shape her future. As time passed, Sophia began to transform her pain into purpose. She began discreetly speaking at events about safety and prevention, always with the aim of helping other people protect themselves and overcome traumatic situations. His voice, once silenced by fear, now inspired others to move forward. Although he preferred to keep part of his life private, his presence and his story became symbols of hope. Sophia had become an example of resilience and courage for Barron and those who knew her path. Today, years after the night that changed her life, Sophia Reed faces the future with a different eye. She knows she can never erase the past, but she chose not to be defined by it. With the support of people who never gave up on her, she built new dreams and moves forward. Her story is not just about survival, but about overcoming and rebirth. Sophia became more than a victim or survivor. She became living proof that even in the face of the greatest darkness, it is possible to find the light and rewrite your own destiny. She escaped. But what about those who never return? What do you think really happened in the 88 days that Sophia was missing? Theories, clues, or any thoughts, leave them in the comments. Your opinion could change how everyone sees this story.